Welcome to our new weekly ABBA magazine show. The second round was already on schedule this week, and all the teams that have won have done so by a big margin. The lowest was 12 points. We watched a game between two former EuroLeague teams, Olimpia and Cibona, and we took a peek in the camp of the former two-times European champion from Zagreb, who's trying to re-emerge in the elite. At the end, also the best 5 actions of the round. In Solnog there was a duel between the only Hungarian representative and the Macedonian champion Skopje, who had previously won against Olimpia, but was still without their powerful forward Georgi Chekovski, and the home team lost its first game in Zadar. First basket was scored by the visitors Todor Gečovski, but that was quickly replied by Martin Bader, and that was the start of an 8-point consecutive run by Solnog. When Alexander Kostovski hit a 3-pointer, the guests were behind by only a point, the second lead of the game for Skopje being assured by Damian Stojanovski, and Skopje won the quarter by 16-15. The first 7 points of the second quarter were scored by the home team, 5 of which came from Akos Horvat. Then 5 consecutive points from Solnog's best scorer Willie Warren, who finished the night with 17 points, 7 rebounds and 7 assists, in this case providing Solnog's the biggest lead thus far by 7. That was followed by a rather unsuccessful Vukojic's timeout as the Hungarians continued their fruitful spree to reach 31-18. MZT has gone incredible 8 minutes without scoring in the second quarter. The curse was finally broken by Kostovski, who began the run of 6 for MZT, but the home team did score the last 4 of the half, with Willie Warren beating the buzzer to set the result of 35-24. In those, a mere 29% field goals efficiency for Skopje. After the initial second half basket by Keller, which set the new highest lead of the game for 13, MZT did succeed to reduce the Hungarians' lead to 9, but the home team again ran away with 8 consecutive points to set a new highest lead of the game, plus 17, when Peter Laurent made it 47-30. He was particularly efficient that night, reaching a double-double with 13 points and 11 rebounds. A bit later, 2 3-pointers of another one from Solnox to make it plus 22, but the gap was reduced to 15 when Alexander Kostovski scored a 3-pointer for the visitors in the last second of the third quarter. He scored another one in the beginning of the last period to make it 55-43, but the Hungarian response was imminent, Akos Keller dunking to take his team to 16 points up front. There was still time for the Macedonians to get back in the game, which they did by reducing the gap to 9.6 minutes before the end. And in spite of a wrist injury, Damian Stojanovski did succeed to score 4 consecutive points to make it 65-58. Furthermore, the lead was still reduced to just 4 minutes until the end, but that was where it all stopped for MZT. When Cedric Oliver wrapped up another 6 consecutive points for the Hungarians, it was enough for the first Solnog win of the season, with MZT being defeated for the first time. End result, 81-69 to Solnog. Radnički was in good spirit after a nice win in Zagreb against Cibona, but hosted the team who has surprised the most in the first round, Široki, who had beaten probably the best season's favorites, Crvena Zvezda. The guests did cast the first stone when Jonathan Jones scored for free, but Radnički replied with 9 consecutive points. The run rounded out by Muftau Yaru, the game's MVP, with 14 points and 14 rebounds. The home team kept pressing, and the advantage soon grew to 17, and Savo Lesic made it 27-12. Ivan Buba, 10 points in the end, scored to cut the deficit to 12. But then Dusan Mlađan had a personal run of 7 consecutive points, and with his contribution the home team was leading at the break with 42-31. Franco Castropi was one of the main men in the second half, 8 points and 5 rebounds in the end, as he was mainly responsible that Široki did close the gap to 5, but couldn't get closer, as Sava Lesic was having a good game. He was the game's best scorer in the end with 16 points and 8 rebounds. It was Boris Barac in his 5 points in a row, which kept Široki's boat somehow afloat. Radnički had always managed to find a response, this time through Marko Marinovic. A very good performance from him, 15 points, 7 rebounds and 9 assists. Radnički's lead after 3 quarters of play, 58-46. In the 33rd minute, Ivan Buva scored for Širky to again close the gap to 12, but then came a game killer. 10 consecutive points for the home team, and when Marko Marinovic made it 75-53, the game was effectively over. A second win for Miroslav Nikolic's boys, a first defeat of the season for a team from Herzegovina. After unexpectedly losing to Krka in the first round, it had to come right for Budućnost when hosting Zadar. Judging from the roster alone, the Montenegro champion was an absolute favourite to take this, but the Dalmatians arrived to Morača in a pretty relaxed mood, having previously secured their first win of the season after beating Solnock on home turf. A nice piece of play for the home team that opened the proceedings, a quick reply from the experienced Ive Ivano, and then a first lead for visitors when Marko Car scored 2 in a row, 8 points for him in the end. The second and also the last time Zadar was in front in the game was when Ivano had put it to 10-9. A run of 11-2 for Budućnost followed, but the most pressing concern for the guests was their shaky defense, which grew more and more holes in it. It posed very little resistance to numerous Montenegrin fast breaks, as in this case where Suat Čehović scored 2 of his 13 points. 24-14 for Budućnost at the end of the first quarter when Nikola Ivanovic had scored his only points of the game. The home team's advantage had increased to 16 when the last year's MVP of the regular season, Alexander Chapin, scored his only 3-pointer of the game, still 14 points for him in the end. It wasn't Budućnost's offensive skills only, but also its defensive display that kept Zadar at bay at all times. When Chapin scored towards the end of the half, the lead had already grown to 23. Zadar at least managed to reduce it to 17 before the end of the half, courtesy of Great Britain player Andrew Lawrence. He was the first Zadar player to reach more than 10 points, but then he most unfortunately crashed with the cameraman, injured his forehead and was forced to the bench while his team was trailing Budućnost by 20. The home team took advantage of this very well, and by the time Vladimir Mihailovic scored 3 of his 9 points, the lead had increased to 28. After that, Ante Djugan was granted some playing time, and he quickly seized the opportunity by scoring 6 out of 11 Zadar's points, and at the end of the third quarter the result was 69-44. Aleksa Popovic was the best scorer of the game with 16, and after he was successful from the free throw line, Budućnost had reached a new highest lead of 31. Josip Sobin took advantage of an understandably break of the concentration for the home side and eventually topped the visitors' scoring chart with 13 points. The end result, 90-68, first win for Budućnost in the new season. The reigning champion Partizan took on Mega Vizura in front of a crowd of 5,500, the league's rookies being coached by a former player of Duško Vujošević, Dejan Milojevic. But that didn't have much influence on the fact that Partizan was hotly tipped to win this encounter. Mega opened first through Serbian national team player Nemanja Krstić, but then the next 10 points were scored by the home team, with Leo Westerman rounding that run up. It was clear that the young Mega team was suffering from lack of composure, as its players missed quite a few open shots, but there was some comfort about the fact that Partizan wasn't particularly efficient either. 18-10 for Partizan after the first 10 minutes. With a second successive 3-pointer from Bogdanovic, Partizan had the first time broken the 10-point lead barrier. After the 3-pointer from Kinsey, it was already plus 14, and Milojevic called for timeout. After that, Kinsey raised the bar to a 16-point lead, but then were some good moments for Mega Vizura as they scored their first 3 through Vasilije Micic, which closed the gap to 12 at 33-21. In fact, next 7 points were scored by the visitors, and when Nemanja Radovic scored, the deficit was only 8 points. But then Partizan slowly retook control with a run of 8 consecutive points, hitting its 8th 3-pointer from only 10 attempts. After Kinsey's 3, the result was 50-31, and Westerman had by that point already scored 18 of his 23 points of the evening. The score at half-time was 53-36, and Partizan had only missed 3 out of 13 3-point attempts. The first basket in the second half was this slam dunk from Nemanja Dangubic, but that was followed by 13 consecutive Partizan's points, which meant the home team had raced away to a 66-38 lead. At the end of the third quarter, Mega had outscored Partizan with 8-2, 7 of which came from Nemanja Radovic, who was eventually the game's best scorer with 25. 70-48 at the end of the third period. Again, Partizan pressed in the beginning of the final quarter. When George Gagic scored, the lead was restored at 28. Through the last period, Partizan did step off the gas a little bit. Interestingly enough, no three-pointers scored from the home team in the second half. End result, 88-65. Last year's best team of the regular season, Igokea, wasn't able to beat Partizan in the first round and has now hosted Crvena Zvezda, who had previously unexpectedly lost to Široki. The visitors were without the injured Raško Katic, one of the best players of last year's Final Four, which was played here. After almost 2.5 minutes, the first points were scored by Igokea's best player of last year, Branko Jorovic, and then the first points for Zvezda after the fast break. Their giant Boban Marjanovic, 11 points in the end, got a nice pass and made it 10-5. And then it was 15-7 after this nice layup by Ivan Radenovic. After many turnovers for the home team, Zvezda wrapped up the first quarter by 17-9. It wasn't long before the visitors led with 12 points advantage, but then came the period where both teams found it hard to make anything happen. Still, Zvezda built on his highest lead when Marjanovic made it 29-16. Jaka Blažić was too quick for the home defense and the score was 33-21. 33-24 at the end of the first half. Zvezda hadn't hit a single three-pointer in the first 20 minutes, but there were 14 turnovers for Igokea, who had only made 3 two-point shots. When Marko Simonovic scored the first three-pointer for the visitors, the team from Belgrade led by 14. The Marcus Nelson was Zvezda's best scorer in the end with 14 points. This is one of his baskets for a new highest lead of the game. Then Marko Simonovic scored another three, and after Charles Jenkins was successful at the free throw line, the bar had been raised to 20 points. Igokea hadn't hit a single two-point shot in the third period and was behind 55-37 after 30 minutes of play. When Boris Bakic hit a three, the deficit was 15, but soon Blake Shields scored and put it back to 19, and the game was all but decided. Crvena Zvezda's coach Dejan Radonic then put two of his youngsters into play, Luka Mitrovic and Dusan Ristic, who had scored to make it 70-50. The end result, 72-52, a first win of the season for the visitors and the second defeat for Igokea, who had only made 8 two-point shots in the entire game. Two former EuroLeague teams crossed swords in the Stožice Arena, Olimpija and Cibona. They both disappointed in the first round, Olimpija losing heavily in Skopje and Cibona unable to beat Radnički at home. The first one to score was the home team through Sasu Salin, and for the guests it was Andrija Žižić, best scorer of the game in the end with 16 points. Olimpija grabbed the lead through Alex Stevenson, but a good period for Cibona then followed. After Matt Channing had scored, it was already 17-11 for the visitors. The home team replied with a 10-1 partial. Cody Augustus hit 2 consecutive three-pointers, and Olimpija was able to get back and win the first quarter by 21-19. The teams were fairly equal throughout the second period, but then a sudden drop of concentration for Olimpija. Cibona took what was offered and with a partial of 9-1 closed the first half with 41-33 after a resourceful finish from talented Dario Šarić. 14 points and 9 rebounds in the end for him. The second half was opened well by Davidas Gailius, who reduced Cibona's lead to 6. And when he hit a 3, 12 minutes till the end, the gap was close to just 5. but that was when followed by a drop, which is rarely seen in modern basketball. After the visitors had only scored one three-pointer in the first 3 quarters of play, they were still in front by 8, but by that time Olympia had already missed 12 free throws. But then came the last period in which Olympia simply couldn't score, and of course Cibona's lead grew rapidly. The first 19 points of the quarter were scored by the visitors, who raced away with a 27-point lead. It took 9.5 minutes for the home team to score their first and only basket of the last period. This is this action. Olympia's Alex Stevenson with, like I said, the only basket of the last quarter. The end result was 74-47, with Olympia with only 22% efficiency in field goals. So now let's take a look on how Cibona is planning to re-emerge with the best. The name Cibona is synonymous with basketball in the capital city of Croatia, even though its glory days seem to be far away in the past, in the days of former country of Yugoslavia, when the blue jersey was worn by none other than Dražen Petrović himself. But there is a big difference between the past and present, the latter being much more down to earth, far away from any kind of top European level. There are of course financial reasons for that, and the Blues have also had to relinquish from playing in the EuroLeague. The club was at some point very near to a financial collapse, but now it seems the circumstances are gradually getting for the better. Let's just say that now we are where we are. We are somehow managed to close about 90% of the debt, but the last 10%, let's say, are the most difficult ones. I believe that we can close it all together by next year, while at the same time being able to sustain the present team's budget. We express great gratitude to the city of Zagreb, who had helped financially and morally to keep Cibona alive.
Koji je pomogao i financijski i s nekakvim backupom ostalim da bi uopće Cibona mogla doći tu gdje sad je.
The mayor of Zagreb, Milan Bandic, is a renowned sports fan of every sports activity in this town, so his engagement is less than surprising.
Što se tiče ovih nekakvih starih dugovanja,
they are all behind us. The city's financial engagement in servicing the debt is actually very large. It is also covering for 50% of the actual budget. The rest is covered by other sponsors. In this regard, we've been sponsored by Frank for many years now. For so long, actually, that we would be perfectly ready to wear their logo, even if their financial help would have ceased altogether. But the numbers just don't match any eventual big European stories, so the Blues are turning to bringing up their own young players. I don't think we will ever be able to have a very large budget. Our aim is a sustainable model, which is actually far lower than some teams already have in the ABA League. In the past, we tried to keep track with some of them, and that is actually why Cibona had found itself in trouble. The budget of 4 or 5 million euros is something in the past. We don't intend to have it in the future as well.
Tako da nekakve lude budžete od 3, 4, 5 milijuna eura mi nemamo namjeru ni u budućnosti imati.
Cibona's new coach was ready to talk about its plans for the future. After reaching for a double crown in the domestic championship, he thinks it is now time for higher challenges.
Mi želimo se vratiti u Final Four ABA lige.
We wish to again qualify for the Final Four of the ABA League. It is quite unacceptable for Cibona to end the season in 11th place. Having said that, we must lower our aims in the Eurocup, as we are not able to play 2 games a week at the same level. We're going to use this opportunity to promote young players, who in turn are going to get some more playing time. One of those who's bound to have greater responsibilities is Croatian national team player Dario Šarić, who eventually stayed in Zagreb in spite of nurturing thoughts of playing
Sigurno
abroad.
razlog je jedan ovoga šta momčad cilja na velike, znači
I have a feeling that everything is going to end up well. The reason I stayed is that the team is aiming to reach higher. I think we have put together a very good team who now also has a great coach. We have the quality required, we only need to work on our chemistry. We need to progress tactically as well, and then everything will be okay.
I u taktičkoj situaciji na terenu da se jednostavno da jedan drugog dobro pronalazimo, da se osjećamo I onda će sve biti dobro.
It's the coach's job to tighten up the loose ends, but he insists there's great potential in this team. That goes especially for the young player from Šibenik. He's still missing something, a certain breakthrough, and I really hope this will be the season when he gets it. He's got great potential, he's willing to work hard, and by that he makes my job much easier. He has definitely advanced in regards to last season, but I expect him to grow further still.
Dosta je napredovao u odnosu na proteklu sezonu, ali ja od njega ove sezone zaista očekujem jedan veliki iskorak.
The 50-year-old expert expects something similar from his new reinforcements, especially high hopes go for the two of them. According to our budget and ambitions, we have reinforced the team with two players, namely Darko Planinic, who is on loan from Maccabi, and Matt Channing, who came from Italy's powerhouse Siena. They are two players of quality, but of course they will both require some time to gel. That especially goes for Planinic, who didn't receive much playing time in Israel. So these are the expectations in the blue camp. We will of course see in what shape or form they will come through. It appears that Cibona could be one of the surprise teams of the season, which would serve as a nice motivation to finally completely sanitize the club. So, easy wins for Solnok, Radnički, Budućnost, Cedevita and Partizan in the second round, while Crvena Zvezda and Cibona were successful away from home. Teams recorded their wins with 22 points advantage on average. Cedevita, Radnički and Partizan are the teams on top of the pile with 100% efficiency. No wins thus far for Igokea, Mega Vizura and Union Olimpija. The MVP of the second round is Partizan's Leo Westermann, who had a great display against Mega Vizura, reaching the value index of 31. So far, after 2 rounds, he's also the best-rated player of the league. And here's the top 5 actions for you. At number 5, this is the action in which Alex Stevenson dunked. In the 4th place, also a player from Union Olimpija after this fast break, dunking by Davidas Gailius. Akos Keller, and this slam dunk is our number 3. We have more dunks to come. This one is from William Coleman from Budućnost. And the best action of the round comes from a young player from Mega Vizura, Nemanja Dangubic. It speaks of honor for him. So the third round starts today. These are the pairings of today, and 2 games will be played on Sunday. We invite you to watch all of them. Until the next time, goodbye.